Hi, this is Jim Peters with Peters Principals. As you know, you never know who you're going to have on Peters Principals, and today we have the school superintendent, Dr. Scott Kofawi. Dr. Kofawi, it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Jim.
I wanted to talk about the election. What does it mean to the Lowell Public Schools?
The new
election, the latest election.
The latest election for the school committee.
All new people?
On the for I think I think we have they brought us the result of the elections brought us 3 new members. So far, 2 members voted, and then 1 is the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor is not new, obviously, in the city scene. He's been there for a while. So far it's been pretty good working with them. The mayor is extremely knowledgeable. He has been involved with education for probably his entire professional life, so he's extremely knowledgeable. So having him on the team has already been beneficial, and I expect it's going to be very beneficial because you say 2 words and he gets it because he's been there. You don't have to do a lot of explaining.
I worked for him for 20 years. So.
For the other 2 members, they're very engaged, and so far they've shown that they really do their homework really well, and whenever there is anything, they just dive right into it, and and they've played extremely professionally and fair. They exchange ideas, participate in discussions. So, yeah, so far so good. That's as far as the school committee.
Right. That's what we're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your biggest surprise in the election?
Really didn't have any surprise because I didn't have any expectations, one way or another. I mean,
but you weren't surprised by the turnout. You weren't surprised by the.
Well, in terms of turnout, no, I wasn't, because I knew that the big issue of the high school is going to draw a lot of people. So I knew that the turnout did not surprise me at all, and I wasn't surprised by the numbers because I talked to people and I knew where they were heading. So I wasn't really that much surprised. And I think the primary had given us some indication of where it's going to go, when
True.
A little bit. So it wasn't a total surprise,
I think I was surprised by the ballot question that
it got
that much support.
Well, no, I don't know. I wasn't.
You weren't surprised with that?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No.
All right. So what's the plan on building on LHS now? I've heard option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4.
Well, I think where we are, we had a meeting last week at the state level, and we talked with MSBA, and there's some bookkeeping, of course, that needs to take place. Some, applying for some extensions and so forth, because some of the earlier submissions we had submitted are going to come to their expiration date, so we needed to apply for some extensions, which they're taking care of that. They're also looking at asking us to make sure that the plans that we submit to them do not include any costs associated with the pool. They're not saying you can't have a pool. You can have all the pools you want, but you're responsible 100% for their costs. Whether you want them, if you want them to have them as a separate building, they don't get involved with that. As far as they're concerned, that's a separate project that at the cost of the city, or you could have it attached to the project, but then you really need to have a real clear delineation of the costs and all the what's associated to the pool and what's associated to the non-pool construction.
Okay.
So that's one of the points that I think they're looking at. They're also, I understand, they're throwing to us a new option that they're asking us to do, which is the option of having a new school altogether. Mm-hmm. And I think we have looked at that at some point. We haven't looked at that in the details they would want us to do, which is drawing plans and so forth. But we have looked at that, if you recall, when we know that such an option is going to require an incredible amount of portables.
Right.
And I think you might have some students who might go through the entire 4 years their entire experience going through portables.
Right.
And I think the community felt very strongly that's not going to be something they would favor or prefer.
Oh, I think that was very loudly.
Yeah, I heard it very loud and clear, and
Yeah.
I communicated that to myself to the when I attended one of the building committees, and I said I'm definitely not in favor of an excessive number of portables. One or two here and there because of absolute necessity, but to bring me a high school running for 4 years on 40, 50 portables, that's just unreal.
Where would we put them?
Well, even if you did have, would you put them? Remember, these are portables.
I know.
What kind of an experience of high school would you give that? So I think that's one of the things that they're asking to say, would you consider looking as well as an option of new school? But I think if you already work on the premise that definitely this is not something the community is favoring at all, or will support in any way to have their youngsters spend their entire high school experience in portable, why would you wouldn't even put any money into designing designs for it if you know right off the bat that the community is not gonna? I thought at the end of the day we do only what the community wants us to do, and that's what the MSBA is encouraging us, is whatever you do, make sure your community is behind you. I already know the community isn't behind us on this one.
Not on portables.
No, not on portable.
No, that came out loud and clear in the initial. I don't know what you call them, but
yeah, the initial discussions
that came up.
We had.
If we do build a new freshman academy, what would we do with the McDonough building?
The current
one.
I think the current one. If you ask me today, of course, when we build and we finish, it'll be 4 years from today, and I have no idea what would happen between now and 4 years in terms of facilities that the city may or may not make available to us. But if you work today with today's data that we have, the constraints we have to live with, that would be an ideal place to move our STEM academy, at least if not all K through 8, because it is now really, it's almost like two schools that are evolving. It is two schools, not almost. It is two schools that are evolving. We had the K through 5, and now it's expanding to 6, and the 7, and eventually 8, and it'll stop. At that point, it's going to be really, really large, two schools. So it's either all, which the building will be more than sufficient for that,
right,
or it'll be, at least if you decide to, that we're going to keep the Rogers School there, the STEM Academy K through 4 or K through 5 over there, and that would be a nice, very nice place for the middle school STEM Academy, particularly because of its proximity to the high school and all the opportunities that you have in the high school with respect to resources for STEM. And we have the maker space over there. We have a lot of things that you can really challenge those students with STEM initiatives. And it will have lots of space for that. The other space that I think will be very appropriate is we could easily find a space for all the administrative offices there on something that the city owns, and we stop paying rent.
Right.
That would save us also quite a bit of rental expenses.
I've heard that it saves us quite a bit of rent. I'm not sure how much the rent is, but did you know that the Sullivan School came within 2 points of winning the STEM Academy contest last night?
Yeah,
the science contest.
Yeah, we have to go congratulate them all.
Came within 2 points. So I thought that was great. That's quite a change from last year. So
yeah.
It's good. This is a question from somebody who keeps asking this question: will there be air conditioning in the new building?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. I mean, we've always talked about HVAC. I don't remember talking any particular time, but yeah, I'll come back with the exact answer for you on this one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. When do they estimate the start of construction? I mean,
I don't know. The thing is now really, we have to first. It depends what you throw at us. If MSBA is absolutely insisting that we need to have a another option on the ground, which is this new school option with everything, you're going to have to spend a lot of time looking at that. What are you going to do with the students? You're going to have these portables. How are you going to do these portables to minimize the distraction? And you're going to have to do all the redesign of the new school plans, which was never presented. So I think if you're going to present that, you're going to have to delay the construction. And in my opinion, it's going to go probably a variation of about almost a school year between, you know,
Okay.
not looking at the additional stuff or looking at the additional stuff. So and then it all depends as well with respect. What we did hear from the MSBA is that even if you're, in the case of eminent domain, if the city does decide to go with the eminent domain options, that once that, I think it's like 30 days from the time it is done, we can go ahead and start the project even if that thing is still in discussion. The only thing, it's a risky proposition because if for some reason that eminent domain fails, I don't know, I'm not an expert in these things, should fail, and whatever would have been incurred in cost is not going to be reimbursable if we have to go revert to another solution. So we have to be careful that it's an issue of reimbursement more so than the legality of eminent domain or anything, which I don't think really many people quite understand. So it's that. So how long is it going to be before people feel comfortable? Let's proceed now safely. I don't know.
Yeah, when are we going to put the shovels in the dirt and throw the dirt?
It's going to be a while. I'm pretty sure, at least, you know.
Yeah.
But it is. I think we would know for sure, and probably in a couple more meetings with the. I know we discussed this just this morning. I was talking to various people. I think we'll know in a couple more meetings once we get down to a clear understanding with MSBA what they're going to accept from us as a package for submission, because that will trigger everything else.
Okay. I looked up something. Did you know that the greatest thing that happened to the Lowell public school system in the 1800s was the impact of grading? They didn't have grading until 1857, and they got grading, and the superintendent said that it was, quote, more salubrious than mischief. So I thought it was kind of cute. The then superintendent said it cut down on 90% of student beatings. So that was funny.
Not have to worry about that now.
Oh, what is happening to the Colburn building? It's being
the Kirk building.
The Colburn building down on. Are we leaving that building?
No.
No.
Which I'm
Oh,
sorry. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Why would we be leaving it again?
I don't know. I just heard a rumor.
There's a lot of rumors. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
a rumor you don't know about.
No,
okay.
I don't know about.
Okay. Now, this is something else I've heard some rumors about, but I'm not sure. What's the status on the head of the Lowell High School? Is it Dr. I can't remember her name.
Mary Ann Bustede. Mary Ann Bustede is the head of school.
Mary Ann Bustede, right.
The interim. The status, she is the interim head of school. Well, the difference between interim and permanent is the duration of your contract, that's all. Really, nothing else is different. You still do the same job, you still have the same responsibilities, and it's a 1 year or usually a longer term contract, which tends to be usually a minimum of 3 with a maximum of 6. The state does not allow any more than 6-year contracts for us. So where is it as it stands now? I think one of the things that people ought to know is when we did the search the first time, we followed guidelines were in place in Lowell for a long time, and we had community members, we had teachers, we had parents, we had students, we had administrators from the central office, we had administrators from the high school, we had principals from other schools. It was a fairly large committee, search committee, and they went out and searched and posted for a whole year. We got a lot of applications, and the pool was really narrow of the people who truly had experience or qualifications and experience in running a large school. So they selected, I don't believe how many, I don't remember, but I think it was around, excuse me, about 8 people that they selected to interview. That's the search committee.
Right.
They went through the screening process. Several people were selected. Among those people was Marianne Bustede. And a lot of people may or may not know that. Was Marianne Bustede. And where everybody was, the search committee was very impressed by her qualification and her experience running a large school. When they went out and requesting interview, I don't really know what happened because obviously I don't do those things at my level. It wasn't in my office that was done. Somebody else was calling all these people to come in for interview. Marianne never showed up. Now the committee, and including myself later on, when I looked at all the application, I was disappointed that she didn't show up because I just assumed that given her qualifications, experience, and really great experience and qualification, I'm sure she got a job somewhere else.
Right.
Because it's not uncommon that a good candidate is going to be applying to 2-3 positions, and they're going to get a job quickly. We all assumed, oh, somebody must have grabbed her, and that's why she didn't come. The search failed, and they selected 3, and the final committee, did not want to recommend to me any one of the 3.
Yeah, I do recall something about this. Okay.
They didn't want to recommend to me any one of the final 3 that they had, the search committee did. At that point, we then reopened the search, this time for a 1-year contract, an interim, because we thought we were so late into the process that we might not be able to apply yet for a full permanent head of school. So we applied for that. Marianne reapplied for the interim, this time through the search firm. So it's the search firm that did the screening this time, a professional search firm. They did all the screening, and again she was selected after their screening and their vetting process, calling her all her references and so forth. They presented to us, to the selection committee this time. Again, they presented a few names, and there were quite some, I think 5 names that were pretty good. She was one of them. So the selection committee, who had several people, again, after they interviewed everybody, selected her as their choice. So
the search committee did?
The search committee, the second time around for the interim.
Okay.
So the one thing that is distinction that I think you should know, the search firm had asked me, they said, asked our administration, are we appointing, do you want to put a restriction that when you do the interim, it's only for 1 year and that's it? Because sometimes they do that. Or sometimes they tell the candidates, they encourage them to apply because they have a chance to stay longer if they are liked. And they can do the job, and they've proved themselves they can do the job. So we elected to go for the second option because we were worried that if we do restricted, that if you come in for interim and that's it, the pool will be very restricted. They told us if you do that, most likely your pool will be very restricted by mostly retirees who can only work with 1 year, given a waiver from the state. So we select Marianne. Marianne started her job. So I was very honest and transparent from the very beginning with her and other interims that we have. And I said, look, I always believe that, to give you a chance. You're the interim. Now it's your job. It's not any different from a permanent job. It's the only difference is the contract duration. So you go on and do the best you can to be the best head of school you can. And you prove yourself. And your community will tell us. Don't worry, they'll tell me what's happening. That happened to the year prior. That's exactly what we did in the Stoklosa. I had an interim. And at the end of the year, I went around, surveyed the whole community, parents, teachers. That's middle school, so you know, some students, but mostly parents and teachers and staff, and everybody was overwhelming, saying, "Please don't change him. We love him. He's doing a great job." We looked at our our interaction with the central office. Everybody loves the guy. Great guy. We look at their results, doing really hard work, doing everything he can to bring the school about, and we said, good. So I called him up and I said, hey, how about staying with us for, we're not going to do a search, stay with us for 3 more years, would you? Said, okay, we signed him up. We did that for the Greenhalghs as well. We never did a search because the person we selected was a well-known entity, known by everybody who loved him and says, yeah, boy, we'd like to have that person as our principal, please. So we appointed him. So it's not like we didn't do that before. We did that twice. So when it came to the head of school, we did the same thing. I said, I don't know you. Now I don't work with you every day. I'm going to be honest with you. This is what I'm going to do. I surveyed the teachers. I surveyed the administrators. I had forums with the parents, and I had forums with the students. Overwhelmingly. The teachers were over 80% supporting her, wanting her to stay. The administration was a 50-50, but it was a very reduced number of responses. There were only like, I think, 6. The parents, we had a forum with them. It was nearly 100%. Everybody saying, yeah, well, she's great working with us and our children. And the students were 100%. We had about 40 students, mostly seniors, and a couple of juniors show up. They were 100% support. So when I looked at that and I said, you know, I don't know where we can get any better, to be honest with you. We can go ahead and do the search. It really doesn't matter. We can still do the search. But when you go to a search, the first thing, if you do a search firm, the first thing, every time I ever did a search, they always ask me this question first. Who's sitting in the job? And why are they leaving? Don't you like them? They're not good. Are they retiring? Are they going to another job? If you say, no, they're not retiring, they're not going to a job, we actually like them a lot. How about their teachers? Do they like them? They'll love them. How about their students? How about the parents? And if the answer is love them, you say, what's wrong with you? Then why are you looking? Do you have money to spare and you want to throw it away? Why don't you donate it? If you don't know what you want to do with your money, you donate it to some other people who need it. So their question is very simple. It's like, why do you think you're going to find somebody out there who's going to be better than this person that you've tested for 1 year? Now, there were cases where we did the same thing. We had an interim, and at the end, people felt iffy. And we said, very honestly, we said to the person, you know what? We're going to do the search. You're welcome to apply, and we'll see. And there were cases where I was very honest with the person and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to do the search, and I will advise you not to apply because your people really will not select you, so don't embarrass yourself. So
well,
that's being transparent.
Right, that's being very transparent.
That's where we are.
Okay. So is she here to stay?
Well, I'm going to give the update to the school committee, and I'm going to tonight, and I'm going to see what, because we have a policy that says that we like to do searches. And I'm happy to do the policy. I'm happy to go do that. But we have a law also that says at the end of the day, no matter what we do, there's only one thing that matters, is the law. And the law is very clear. The decision is only the superintendent's decision. And I know you guys have had the experience with 2, I think, my predecessor before, where there was a search where there were 3, a couple of times there were 3 finalists selected, sent to my predecessor. She had to look at them, interviewed all of them, and then decided to hire a 4th one who never applied. So, I mean, and that's totally legal. Because at the end of the day, you're holding the responsibility of success or failure is the superintendent's. You know, not say you are on the committee and you committee send me somebody that I recommended and they recommended and I hired, and that person turned out to be a complete failure. I can't turn around and say, well, don't blame us, blame Jim. He was on the committee. Can't do that. It's still my responsibility, so I have to take it very seriously.
Well, I knew all of that, most of that, but I wasn't sure about her specifically.
Well, I think as I said, I work with this person every now and then, not daily, so I had to go to the people who work with her daily, my administration, her teachers, the parents, the students were out. The students were probably the most outspoken in their support for her, and I was impressed. I wish I could hear the same thing from all the principals. It would be great.
Well, I know that when you introduced me to her in the summer of last year, she wanted to see my histories of the schools, but we've never gotten together. So I'm wondering where that one's going. I'm trying to get her on the phone and see what we can do about the histories of the schools. Are you affected directly by the U.S. Department of Education, or is that kind of like a filtered down thing?
Indirectly, yes, we are very much affected by whatever they do. We're very much affected. We are very much affected. They cut already $1 million of support in our grants of Title I, which come from the feds. Last year we had a reserve in grants that we were able to immediately plug in, so we did not feel the pain.
Right.
This year we don't have that. We exhausted that. So
right.
This year we'll be cutting an additional $1 million, figuring out how are we going to plug in those and respond to those demands, fulfill those demands.
So you have to find $1 million.
We have to find $1 million to replace, or we have to cut the programming, which will be really sad because that programming was very, very, very beneficial to the children.
Now, what effect does the loss of City Manager Kevin Murphy have on the school department?
For him leaving, you mean?
Yeah.
It's obviously it's. I don't know what his private life, demands. I wish him all the luck, but I got to tell you, particularly this year, he has been pretty supportive, has been very responsive, particularly to me. I don't think I can recall any time that I called him for something and he didn't respond within the 15 minutes. When I was something very serious, I called him up and he got on it right away. I think in time we really, I've been only here for 2 years and a half now. I think we had the last year and a half we've really developed a really good relationship. So I'm sorry to see him leave in some ways because, but I think whatever the community decides, they'll give us. We'll work with them and we'll respect them the same way, and we'll work with them very collaboratively.
Okay. Just one more question and then we'll be done. How do the state mandates affect teaching? Because there's definitely an effect I found when I was teaching.
Well, in several ways, obviously, whether you're talking about new mandates and regulations about their certifications or changing the curriculums in ways that may requires a lot of work on our part to realign with the new curriculum. That's usually the direct effect to the student with respect to them doing the job on a day basis. The other indirect effect is their regulations on SPED or on ELL and how it affects the classroom very drastically, and thus obviously affects the job of the teachers and how they perform in the classroom. I mean, the least well, not the least, but I think the last thing which is very, very visible to all the districts and affects us greatly is really these many unfunded mandates, where they create so many mandates, and initially, I know they're all well-intentioned, there's no doubt about that in my mind, and then the state themselves falls short in not securing funding for them.
Right.
And then, so it's not really something that they do purposely. They themselves find, they face this hardship not being able to get funded, and yet everybody has already launched toward those mandates and trying to, because we recognize the need to change.
Wouldn't it make sense to have funding?
But yeah, the problem is when you don't have funding, a lot of time is really coming down to the affecting directly the workplace, which is how students learn or how teachers deliver their in the classrooms, and that becomes we see it more and more. So whatever they do, whether it's state or federal, it affects one way or another.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
This is Jim Peters. We've been on Peters Principles, and we've been having Dr. Salak Kafawi of the Lowell School Superintendency with us. And thank you, Doctor, for being here.
Thank you.